Hi fellow twin flames, I just wanted to make a quick video pertaining to the extremely important message of personal empowerment within twin flame unions in the form of blatant, raw authenticity, as well as to share an example of this through a personal experience or a lesson, better yet, from spirit that I had just a few days ago with this. So I was looking for help on how to grow my new tarot reading Instagram page and purchased a sort of training package that gives you information on how to go about doing that. However, when I downloaded the file that promised a buttload of content, including over 300 videos of explanations and audio clips and more, I couldn't seem to locate a single one of these valuable pieces of content that was promised to buyers in its description. I immediately began to worry, even though it wasn't that expensive of a purchase, that I had just spent my energy and gave it away to another being for free. So I decided to go ahead and reach out to the seller and let them know my dilemma and explain to them the current situation at hand. Her response was that of a confused one, as she explained to me that it in fact did include all of the pieces of content that was promised to the buyers, and she even began giving me advice on how to try to resolve the problem a bit afterwards. I immediately began to get into that smaller, old, lesser self, where I began to feel stupid for simply not understanding what was wrong, or where I wasn't, air quotes, smart enough to make it work all on my own, which is what's known as a trigger, if there's anyone who hasn't heard of this reference before. Luckily, because I'm very near the end of my personal twin flame ascension separation journey, I had already cleared significant layers of this trauma from childhood out of my system, making it clear that this was just another final go around with that false version of myself that I no longer even resonated with in the first place. This made me able to finally feel the true man within that was always there blossoming throughout the entire ascension process, just buried underneath layers and layers of lies that the Matrix beast system coats us all with, until we finally get to the center of who we truly are. So I began to settle into this new energy and version of myself that was peeking out and wanting to reveal itself to me as an option, which I did decide to take. I immediately was able to dissolve the lies and negativity that usually pollutes this area, along with my heart chakra and solar plexus, pull myself back to reality, and let true adulthood, which many adults and adult twin flames still haven't successfully attained yet, believe it or not, take over this time instead. But what made this such a beautiful success overall was my choice to use honesty rather than dishonesty to resolve it 100% fairly, with nothing weird going on underneath the surface. This meant that I had to both take responsibility for things that were true, as well as for things that were not true. First, I began to take responsibility in a very logical sense by fully realizing and accepting the fact that this was my very first time purchasing content like this ever and having to view it in a pretty particular way. Secondly, I began to logically and accept the fact that I was not stupid, that this was clearly a test of strength by spirit and the system to see if I would dim my power and slip into a mini panic, self-hatred attack for hours like I used to in the past. Thirdly, I began to accept that if the woman I'm dealing with gets unnecessarily annoyed by my lack of knowledge or air quote stupidity of the situation, that she could not drain or feed on my energy, as she couldn't have the permission to without my relinquishing it away to her first. And lastly, I began to accept the hard fact, because this can actually be tough for those with severe trauma and resistance in this area, that I was smart enough to resolve the situation by her guidance, just like anyone else could, rather than merely excluding myself from society, the center of all, the truth altogether, and deeming myself a top 1%er and not being able to do the simplest things right. Once I took a few breaths, allowed the negative demonic energies to fade away, and practiced everything that you just heard, I was able to quickly understand what the problem was and even resolve the last part of the problem without our help. I most definitely earned another stripe for my adulthood manhood training there, which I did feel and experience within myself. But what really topped it off and wrapped everything in a bow for one of the final major lessons, although it may seem small, on my twin flame ascension journey, was the fact that I owned up and was honest to the seller and myself about something kind of embarrassing in the end. After I had thanked her for the help and began telling her that I had actually resolved this somewhat worrisome issue because she couldn't actually provide me a refund since it was a digital product, I then went to tell her just why I couldn't figure it out all on my own, and I began to immediately slip into that lesser, more demonic version of myself that was still barely there, and that wanted to point blame at something or someone, just so that the inner entity could convince me that I'm safe because of this. Do you want to know what my excuse was going to be, which is never truly needed, so that I could erase all my hard-earned progress, listen to the devil, and backtrack? That I was having malfunctions with my tablet. Yes, my poor innocent tablet was going to take the blame, because there literally is none, instead of me just simply telling her the truth, or just choosing to thank her and call it a day. But in order to challenge myself and earn another one of those stripes that I was just talking about earlier, I pushed myself even further, whilst hesitating for a few seconds beforehand, I will admit, and told her the blatant, raw, honest truth that it was my fault, air quotes, simply because it was my very first time receiving content like this and in this way. Then suddenly, my body felt so freed up, matured, and my mind relieved of the many cycles with this unnecessary trauma. I then began to see an inner glimpse of what I would feel like and how I'd be behaving if I had chosen to listen to an inner entity, decided to make something out of literally nothing, as well as lessen my precious, naturally intelligent, divine sacred self in the meantime, like some sort of a sick, twisted game that I'm playing with myself and the world. Spirit did in fact reward me right afterwards, which came with the unignorable sensation of maturation, like mentioned earlier, a deep feeling of passing successfully from the lesson, as well as an immense amount of pent up energy freeing up and flowing around within the areas of my body that this entity was still affecting and operating this silly programming. But best of all, the maturation process that I just passed actually rewarded my twin flame union as well by sending out a signal to them that my consciousness, as well as my sovereignty and self worth, had ascended up to the high level that it's supposed to be, pulling us in and getting us much more aligned with each other and ready for physical union. Pure authenticity 100% of the time, all day, every single day, says to yourself, God, and your twin flame, I'm here, I'm real, I'm naked, I'm unafraid, and I'm ready to do this damn thing. And that is also sexy. So, do you see the kinds of tests that Spirit throws our way, as well as our opportunities to see them clearly for what they are whenever they do, and allow us a huge opportunity to grow? If you felt you received something from this testimony, I guess you could call it, and would love some good old raw, honest help from myself, Jesus Christ, and the fairy kingdom, visit my psychic surgery shop and look at the many sessions and activations that I have that will surely remove any unwanted, subliminal behavior patterns that separates you both from life, as well as your soul and your twin soul union. Just look for the link to my Etsy shop in the description. I actually just did some amazing, much needed healing work on a young woman a few days ago who needed it in areas and from specific time frames in her life that she was not aware of. So challenge yourself to truly mature and miraculously, even spontaneously evolve, just like she did, if you want to remove entity attachments and if you're serious about your twin flame union. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to hearing about your authentic twin flame unions in the future. Bye.